Good afternoon, my favorite listeners. Our show today is brought to you by, drink-wise at least, Guayaki. They're my favorite yerba mate drink. Gives you energy, tastes good. It's organic. You can't get better than that, Michael.
Excellent.
Michael, how have you been, sir?
I'm very good.
Yeah?
Doing well.
Even with the whole writer debacle going on, you good?
Yeah, things are good.
I hope some positive things come from the writer debacle. That's what I'm calling it. It's not a strike. It's the writer debacle. I think that's fair. No? No?
Agency writer debacle.
Agency writer debacle. Okay. Well, that's all I'm going to say about that. Before we start the show, and I introduce my wonderful, wonderful guests, we have a few listener questions, and that's something I'm going to start doing from the show. You send me a tweet, Facebook message, Instagram message, and guess what? I'm going to answer your question. That's what I do here on the show. Mr. Michael, what is our first question, and who's it from?
It's from Nico, and it's, if you weren't an actor, what would you like to be?
Okay, Nico. You know, if I wasn't an actor, probably something within the special forces. You know, I have a lot of respect for people in the military. Probably something in that. Maybe SWAT team, too. I like stuff like that a lot, yeah.
All right.
Next question.
This is from Ching Ching Room.
Okay. Change it. I'm kidding. What is it?
But their question is, who is your favorite actor?
I loved how uncomfortable you were saying that name.
I was very uncomfortable.
What was it? What was the question?
Who is your favorite actor?
Oh, big fan of Christian Bale. Yeah, it's hard to pick a favorite. Like Al Pacino, his earlier stuff. Yeah.
Up next is, how did you get into acting?
Oh,
From Karma Farah.
Karma Farah, I was always an energetic kid since I was young. First play, I think, was like 8th grade. Or was it maybe in 2nd grade when I did a play called Sneetches on the Beaches? It was a Dr. Seuss thing. Oh, yeah, Sneetches on the Beaches. Sneetches on the Beach. And there was a segregation thing with the Sneetches with stars versus the Sneetches with no stars. Yeah, pretty insane. Next question.
Charlie Burt says, how is it working with Tom Verica?
Oh, man, Tom. No, I'm kidding. Tom is like one of my favorite people to work with. He comes from an acting background, and so whenever he's directing our episodes on For the People, it's a very smooth and exciting process, and he gives you ideas to do certain takes or ideas for the scene that you didn't really expect, and they work out great. And he's a great visionary director as well. His visuals, what he has planned, how the story moves along. Pretty incredible guy. He always likes to give me a hard time, which I love, you know. And also, whenever we're like blocking a scene before we start shooting, he'll go, "Wesam Kish." So that's always a lot of fun.
And our last question is from Keel Adams. What is
Kyle? I know him. We went to high school together.
Kyle. All right, Kyle.
Kyle. Yeah. Keel.
What is your favorite prank you've ever played on someone?
That's hard. That's hard. That's a hard one. I mean, recently it was we're gonna take Jonte to a monkey park and really freak him out, but we ended up the ones being freaked out. I think probably the lotto ticket with Jonte, just because it was kind of mean, and the fact that it just played out so well, and just watching him. If you go back and watch the progression when he's looking at the ticket. And then he realizes it's a prank. I mean, you can't get better than that. Yeah, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful arc to that.
And those are our listener questions.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And thank you for tuning into the show, listening, and sending us questions. All right. Our guests today are two amazing people. One of them I work with on For the People. She's a co-executive producer on the show. Her name is MERRI Howard, and she's been a producer in television for years and years. I mean, some of her credits include Star Trek, the
Voyager, the Next Generation.
Yeah, like the old school
Enterprise.
shows. Yeah, she comes from a good TV background, and she's also co-executive produced on Scandal. I think Grey's as well.
Cold Case.
Cold Case, yeah, for a long time on Cold Case. So she is an incredible person, and she reminds me a lot about my mom, like my mom. So that's a good thing. And then also, her husband is on the show with us, and he is been in radio for years and years. He's an author. He's a world-renowned food critic, husband, father. I mean, this guy is amazing, and right now he hosts this podcast called High on the Hog, the POTCAST. And it's not your typical like cannabis podcast. Its primary focus is talking about healing and how to get healed through cannabis products, which I absolutely love. There's a lot of, weed or cannabis podcasts out there, and this one focuses primarily on the healing aspects of it, which I love. And it comes from people who there's a generation gap, and I think that's awesome. They give a lot of knowledge on their show, and they bring in like CEOs and people who are involved in the cannabis industry, people who have been changed in a positive way and been healed by cannabis products, which is very exciting in this day and age. And we talked about that on the show. We talked about our travel stories, food stories, and it was probably one of my favorite podcasts that I've done here on our show. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for Merril Shindler and MERRI Howard. All right, Merril and MERRI.
Woo!
How you guys doing?
We're good. How are you?
It's fine. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Life is good right now?
I'm still breathing.
Yeah.
That's always good.
How was the drive from where you guys are at down here in the valley?
Uneventful.
Yeah?
Like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
Good
The
Saturday
Schindlers
morning.
always come early.
I get to see the colorful stuff around here. It's I'm always looking for restaurants, and the neighborhood is full of small, ethnic, strange places.
Yeah, like a wide variety of stuff out here.
Well, it's something I always get into. That looks like the most loathsome dump ever. It might have the best hamburger in the world. Who knows? And
Yeah.
am I the one who's going to find out?
I think it's every street corner. Merril, have you been here? Have you been here? Look at that. That's
Yeah, and often the answer is yes. I have been
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, your resume is pretty impressive. It's author, it's food critic, it's radio show host, husband, father. I mean,
Yard work.
yard work.
Yard work. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, you guys like gardening.
honeydews.
Honeydews. Oh,
Honeydews.
nice. Have they come into season? Honeydew. Are you talking about honeydew melons?
No, I was talking about like honeydew this, please.
Oh, honeydew this. I thought you were talking about like honeydew melons. I'm like, oh, they like
That would be
honeydew
good.
melons. Okay.
We actually
It's a
do
married
too.
thing.
Honeydew this. Now I get it. How long have you been working in radio?
I've been in radio since the early 80s.
Okay.
I moved to Los Angeles from San Francisco to be in radio. I had been the music editor at Rolling Stone, and Rolling Stone went back to New York. And I said, yeah, they're going to exactly the same building I was in 7 years before. San Francisco, you're into like every 7 years you change your skin, you do all that stuff. It's like, I'm not supposed to be back where I was 7 years ago. That's weird. So also I knew that Jan would fire everyone because that's his favorite activity in the world.
Who's
He
Jan?
loved- Jan Wenner, the publisher and creator of Rolling Stone, loved to fire people. It was like a blood sport. And it was like, no, do not buy that apartment. He's going to fire you. And he would fire you in a very interesting way. He wouldn't actually fire you. You'd go out on a Friday afternoon after the magazine was put to bed to get drunk, and you'd come back to the office, and there'd be a cardboard box in front of your office with your stuff in it, and the lock would have been changed.
Whoa.
So it was like, wow.
With no heads
wow.
up.
And I'm drunk.
Oh my God.
So it was like I knew, and indeed, within 6 months, he had gotten rid of the whole staff. So I stayed up in San Francisco for a while and just did San Francisco stuff, played Frisbee professionally, did that sort of thing. And I got an offer to come down to Los Angeles, which seemed like, hell with like worse traffic to someone who lived in San Francisco. with the attitude is the attitude, and to write American Top 40 for some guy named Casey Kasem. It was like, how is it Rolling Stone? What's like Casey Kasem? What is? He's got the Carpenters on the show. Oh, for God's sake! But it was like it paid money, and it was like, okay, time for the next chapter. And I left my lovely little house in Tiburon near the water. Great place to live.
Okay, I gotta stop you. I've already a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Were you with Merri at this time?
No, I was not.
Okay.
No.
Just so you guys know, I give you guys the best intro, like in a little piece I do before we start talking. So that's where the intro comes in. But so they'll know you guys are married and everything like that. But so you guys hadn't met yet at that point, right?
Right.
Okay, and then
This is years before.
yeah, and then you started working what year with Casey Kasem?
1979.
1979. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm much older than I look. I know I look in my 20s, and honestly, it fools everyone. So I came down to write Casey Kasem, and this was a world apart from me. All these little stories, these teasers, this music that I didn't listen to. Mm-hmm. And I just had an ability to tell his stories. And that's really what you do, what I do, what Merri does. It's what we're all about. We're all about telling stories. And if you could tell stories, if you could communicate them, that's why it's always been like, keep it short, keep it simple, keep it punchy. Get to the point. Don't drag it out on and on and on. And with Casey, it was basically very, very, very restrained.
It's to the point.
To the point, yeah.
I mean,
but
you would write, and he'd get the copy, and
Right.
every Saturday at 3:00 in the afternoon, Casey would call the house to go over what Merril had done.
Yeah.
And before,
and he would speak of himself in the third person. He would say, "Oh, Casey Kasem wouldn't read this."
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. And what I had was a realization that, and this is from being on various other shows, and indeed for all of us, those of us who are in the media play a character with our name. So Casey Kasem was on the radio playing a character named Casey Kasem, the same way that Johnny Carson was on TV playing a character named Johnny Carson. They had certain Bob Hope, etc. They had certain images. This was not necessarily them. You've heard about people being really unpleasant when the camera turns off. That's because they revert to who they were. But when they're on the air, they're really nice. I play a character named Merril Shindler when I do my radio shows, who's really interested in what you have to say about your taco at Taco Bell. Really like that. And I've had these calls. And it's, Merril, I want to tell you about my favorite restaurant in the world. It's Taco Bell. Really? I feel so bad, I would always say, about how they got rid of the dog. They used to have the little dog, the little Chihuahua as their mascot. And he's gone. I like that little dog. And boy, they sure give you a lot of food for the money. I'll never say it's good. But I'll say, I also won't tell the person that the person is like a fool. I've seen that done. I've seen other restaurant people do that. You don't do that. You don't invalidate people. And then I'll get off the air and, I'll kick the wall a couple of times. It'll be the basic me. We all play at someone.
That's such a good point about invalidating person. You don't do that, and I think that's missing a lot of times nowadays. It's important to validate person's opinion because then you validate their experience, and if you don't do that, that's just being rude, and I don't think that's correct either.
Well, it's also shock radio. It's like in your face, MF. I'm in your face.
Well, I just think that's as a human being. I mean, that's not who we are, right? I mean, it's like you always have to validate people.
Yeah.
That's just.
But not everyone does.
Not everybody does, and that's what makes.
I used to be the
Mm-hmm.
sidekick for a guy named Elmer Dills on KBC, and he was a food guy who really wasn't that interested in food. And I remember sitting there on the show, and someone called and said, "Mr. Dills, I've got to tell you about this place. It's this wonderful restaurant I went to, and it always means so much to me because my husband got down on his knee after the meal, and he proposed to me, and the restaurant will always be so special to me." And Elmer said, "Oh, I've been there. I don't like the food at all." And it's like, no, that was no, you don't do that.
But you guys play. It was good cop, bad cop. I mean, that's how it was.
Oh, well,
because you were genuine in how you felt.
Yeah. But it was like there was a lesson there, and which I really learned. And the lesson was you don't do that to people. You know, they're calling in to share with you this touching thing in your life, in their life. You know, be with them in it. So it's, you know, I write a lot of. I'm still a restaurant critic. I write a lot of restaurant columns every week. We're here in the Valley. I do the Valley Daily News. I do. You know, I have a great time because I love getting out there. As Merri well knows, I love getting out there and finding places. And nothing makes me happier than being the only Anglo in a particular ethnic restaurant, which sometimes has gotten me into some strange situations of people looking at me like, "What are you doing here?
Right?
What, you like this food?"
Yeah, he'll text me as he's coming, like in really deep ends of the valley, and just like, "This is amazing. I'm the only person here. The food is amazing." Starts taking pictures and like starts literally sending pictures to Sarah
and they're confused, and they've. Well, you remember Merri?
Like, bring the leftovers, or order us a plate. Bring it home.
Do you remember you were very pregnant with Sarah? And we go into a place in Alhambra, which is a big Asian community, called Loogie, kind of an unfortunate name. It probably translates to something other than Loogie.
Okay.
But that's what it was in Chinese. And it was a hot pot restaurant. And we start to walk in, and Merri's like 9.5
like a week
months.
before, like
you know,
popping
or a minute. You know, and the lady comes running to
like,
us, and she
"No,
says,
no."
"No, you can't eat here. You can't eat here."
Like literally stopped me from.
And
coming
I've
to the
seen
door.
this happen before where they think, you know, because we're dumb Anglos, we'll want beef with broccoli and we won't understand the food. And I go, no, it's okay. I've had hot pot. I like hot pot. She says, "No, you can't eat here." I say, "Why can't I eat here?" She says, "No good for the baby."
Too spicy.
Too
Come back.
spicy. I went back
later.
a few weeks later. Sarah would have been born in Loogie, the hot pot restaurant, and we would have had to have named her Loogie Schindler.
Oh man.
You know, which she would never have forgiven us for.
Yeah.
But
Is
it was
that-
an amazing. It was an amazing restaurant. You
It was a
loved
wonderful
but it's too spicy
restaurant,
for me, as
but
we
it was
realized.
like, you know, sometimes to tell you the truth, and sometimes they're just like, no, you're dumb and you won't know the food. And it's I had an experience I told you about in a Vietnamese restaurant. I'm sitting there eating, you know, a bowl of pho, and which is the noodle soup, and I'm eating some spring rolls. It's a pretty much standard issue meal. And I notice there's a guy giving me the hairy eyeball. Keeps looking over at me, and I go, "What's going on here? What's going on?" And finally, he throws down his utensils, his chopsticks, comes over to me and says, "What are you doing here?" And I go, "I'm having dinner." And he says, "What do you mean you're having dinner here? I've never seen a white person in this restaurant before." I go, "Well, I like the food." He said, "You like our food? I've never heard of that before. What did you order?" I said, "I ordered some, spring rolls. There was some pho." He said, "You ordered all wrong." Goes back to his table and brings me a plate of what he was eating, which strangely was pretty much exactly what I was eating. So I never quite understood what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy the fact that as a basically clueless Anglo, I could do all sorts of dumb things in restaurants and no one will really, complain. Like I was at a Japanese yakitori restaurant, things on skewers.
Yeah.
Shinsengumi was the name of it. And I'm sitting at the counter, and you could get like 7 sticks, 14 sticks, and I'm busy. In front of you are like 24 different condiments, and so I sort of look at them. I randomly grab one and put it on the chicken, and the kid sitting next to me looks at me, looks back, does a double take, and he says, "Excuse me, can I ask you, why are you putting salad dressing on your chicken?" And I said, "I don't know. The label was in Japanese. It looked like something you'd put on your chicken." And you remember the funny thing at the noodle house where Merri, who's cautious of hot,
You don't like spicy food?
I can eat a little bit of spicy, not too spicy. It just depends on what it is. But
Okay.
yeah, so like everything that we do is pretty much mild, and then he'll get the sauce on the side. So
Well, they had a dish called something
Yeah.
like spicy chicken noodles. So the waitress comes over, and clearly she does not speak any English. And she says, except for a few words, she says, "What do you want?" And Merri says, "How spicy is the spicy chicken noodles?" And she says, "Okay, 1 order spicy chicken noodles." And Merri says, No, I don't want to order it. I just want to know how spicy it is." She says, "Okay, 2 orders spicy chicken noodles." And Sarah chimes in, "No, you're not understanding. She wants to know how spicy." She says, 3 orders spicy? And the kid next to us is just falling on the floor, howling with laughter.
Oh my God.
He's a Chinese American kid. He says, "I'll
you
explain
gotta
to her."
stop. I'll help you.
Yeah.
That's
We're
very
like,
nice.
"Thank you so much."
But remember the bibimbap story.
Yeah, we have like every time we go to a
Bibimbap
restaurant,
is
we
the
have a
most
story.
wonderful Korean dish. It's like a Korean rice casserole that's burnt on the bottom. It's absolutely fantastic. And we always order it. So we're at a Korean restaurant. And I say, we'll have the bulgogi, we'll have the kalbi, and can we have an order of the bibimbap? And the lady starts laughing uproariously, saying bibimbap, bibimbap. And we go, yeah, bibimbap. She says, bibimbap, bibimbap. And she's just laughing. She can't control herself.
Every time Merril pronounced it, like
she just would laugh.
Just howl.
And she goes away and she comes back with it. I said, thank you for the bibimbap. She said, bibimbap, bibimbap. She can't stop laughing. I turn to the family seat next to me. I go, what am I doing wrong? Isn't it bibimbap? And they look at me and they say, I don't know. We're Chinese.
So
I love being out there. It's so exotically funny. It is, of the various things I do, it is clearly the most entertaining.
Yeah, it's fun. It gets you out there. You experience new things. You experience new cultures and like people. You know, that's the best part of it. Is like learning about people through food, which I just absolutely love.
And you probably just did that in Japan.
Oh, I was gonna share with you actually like three quick stories. One of my experiences with pronouncing something incorrectly was in Syria actually, and this was when I was younger and I was a lot more picky with my food, and of course going to a foreign country and I'm picky with my food. My brothers are. There's one place that does hamburgers on this like busy strip in my hometown in Syria, where I was born. And I was like, okay, I'm getting a hamburger there by myself. And I went in there, and the way they order there is an experience in itself. Like, there's just no line. You just kind of have to like shimmy your way in. And I'm like so shy, and I'm like, oh, I'm nervous now. And I realized, oh, my Arabic skills are not up to par right now. So finally, I like shimmy in there, and I go, one hamburgerai, which is hamburger. And the guy could tell I'm not from there. And then I was like trying to tell him, I just want extra tomatoes. And I said it wrong. And then like everybody kind of just stops, looks at me, and he's like, you want, he said, I say it, Beraduna, which is actually, it's Benadura. So it's just a simple like letter switch up. And then he keeps repeating it the way I said it, and everybody starts like laughing. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know what I'm like, why are they laughing at me? And it was like an embarrassing moment a little bit, but I got my hamburger and
you hadn't asked for him to put like some car oil on it. That wasn't what the word meant.
No, they were just like making fun of my pronunciation. It sounded like it would be the equivalent of me coming in and having like a heavy like Southern accent on one word. And it's like, why is he saying it like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is a certain nervousness about, you know, Americans are more than anything else scared of food. There are folks out there who will not eat out of their hotels. They'll travel 6,000 miles and they'll eat a hamburger in their hotel because they're terrified. Or the cruise ship. Right. We have a cruise ship story that was so definitive, which it was a Disney cruise, and one of the stops was in Cozumel. And after a week of veal parmesan, it was like enough. I get off the ship. I walk a couple. It was or maybe it was a month.
It feels like
I was when you're surrounded by Disney characters. Time moves slow. And I get off. I get off at Cozumel. And I walk around. I realize like a couple of blocks off of where the ship docks. There's a whole street of seafood restaurants because it's an island in the Caribbean. Of course, there's going to be seafood restaurants. So I go back. I say, hey, here's what we're going to have dinner tonight. We're going to go. We're going to have some shrimp, some crab. We're going to have margaritas. We're going to have a fine time. So we get off the ship. We go there. We have a real good meal. We come back to the ship, and in shipboard style, they seat you with the same people every night. And so one of the people at the table had noticed, of course, we weren't there, and said, hey, where were you tonight? You were on a dinner. And I said, well, we got off the ship and we went to a seafood restaurant, and a Mexican seafood restaurant. And he looked at me like, I just told him that I had just visited a leper colony. And he said, you ate off the ship. You paid for the food on the ship. Pause. And anyway, you get sick eating in a foreign country. And there it is. He defined it. He defined cruise people. You could get sick eating in a foreign country. Not a chance. And Merri, we've always, when we've traveled, and we're pretty well traveled, I have a thing about going to the people who work in the hotel, the valet park is whatever, and going, so where do you guys eat? And we found some great restaurants. We found places on Kauai.
It's actually the best thing to do because it's like literally all the local restaurants and like all of the like in Kauai. It's like what was Shake. What's the place on Kauai that we like?
Kauai, Faux Kauai.
Faux Kauai. But also there's the Shack. De Crack.
De Crack, which is a Mexican restaurant. It's just a window.
Literally, it's a stand. It's a window.
Yeah,
and,
it's a window inside of a supermarket.
It's great. Whoa. Yeah.
And Chicken in a Barrel, which is a smoked chicken place. And it's like, eat. And at first they're a little hesitant. They're going, oh, well, you want some surf and turf? I go, no, we don't want surf and turf. No, we want to eat what the locals eat. And one of the toughest things I've ever had with that was in Jamaica. As far as I can tell, Jamaican food, which is very good stuff, is completely concealed and hidden away from the tourists. In Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, you can't find the stuff. It's just not there. And I finally had to get someone to drive me a few miles away, and I began to see by the ocean these little funky shacks with leaves over them and such. I said, okay. And smoke coming up. I said, good place to eat? They said, yeah, good place to eat, man. Take another puff. And, it was like, okay, I found the real food. That was good. And kid, you get sick. You get sick eating in the hotel. You get sick eating on the ship.
It's all part of the experience.
Any place.
Right? Yeah. I mean, as you know, it's just
I'm so thankful that I live in a time of the internet age where I can just learn everything, learn all the hidden spots if I do enough research, and I'll be fine. Like, for instance, your experience with people maybe don't want you to eat at their restaurant. I heard in Japan sometimes in those like alleyway yakitori places, they'll be like, nope, no foreigners.
Yakitori street.
So I was prepped for that. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll respect that. If you don't, there's plenty of other places I can eat. I'm not there to make trouble. I just want to have a good time. And it wasn't at the yakitori or any of the food places that me and my friend got kind of politely kicked out of. All those yakitori places, by the way, people were trying to get us
It's
in.
amazing. So they actually invite you in.
Yeah, they were trying to.
So you were at
Yakitori. No.
It's called Yakitori Street, and it's off one of the big squares in Tokyo.
Piss Alley, it's called.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. Is that?
No, we actually, because from your photos, it was exactly the same place that we were at.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
It's like about 45 or 50 places.
Yeah.
And some of them, are totally packed. Some of them totally empty.
Or some of them are actually just 4 seats. Some of them are 8 seats.
Yeah.
It just depends on.
And the food's fantastic, and it's it was one of the high points of the trip.
Yeah,
the trip with many high points.
We actually went there. I think it was the first or second night that we were in Tokyo. That was the first place we went.
Yeah, it was it was beautiful in there. We actually we ended up eating at a curry place over there, and it was fantastic because it was rainy.
What did you get kicked out of?
Oh, so
not Japanese.
I was trying to find this beautiful gift for my mom and dad for our family and make it symbolic and stuff like that. Have you ever heard of kitsugi? Mr. Michael?
Yes, sir.
There's a thing called kitsugi, and it's where people repair broken pottery with gold.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the name.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of it, yes.
So I'm like, oh, that's super symbolic, and that's super... Go. Oh, kintsugi. Yeah, I was close. So you've got these wow. It makes it more beautiful even though it was broken. So it's repaired by gold, and gold having its esoteric and symbolic meaning behind it as well. And I was like, oh, I need to find some authentic kintsugi and gift it to my family. It'll be very special. And we came across this beautiful pottery shop. It was traditional. And we went in there the first time, and I thought it was just a language barrier thing where they were like, oh no, there's a class going on because they had pottery going on. And I'm like, oh, I was interested in this. We had our little Google Translate, and they were like, no. And I was like, okay, maybe we'll come back another day and we'll try to maybe somebody else will be there. Well, the second day or the next time we were there, I was trying to talk with the guy, and I don't know if it was a sixth sense or something, and I'm like, I don't think he wants us in here, but he's too
respectful.
Yeah, probably. Respectful to kick us out. And I think he kept going in the back and talking with, I don't know if it was his boss or his parents, and he would give us an answer, and then he would come back with something totally different. And I asked him, and this was the thing that really got me to think oh, maybe they don't want us in here. Maybe they think we won't appreciate the kintsugi, was the fact that I was like, hey, is this real gold or is it fake gold? Because I'd like to purchase something that's real gold. And he's like, oh, most of these are real. Let me go check which ones are. Which I was like, great. He comes back, he's like, oh, all of them are fake. And I'm like, oh, okay. Huh. And then I just got that vibe, and I was like, okay, arigato. And then like I just left with my buddy, and I was like, wow, that was so polite. I've never I just felt that vibe off him. So yeah, I mean, it happens.
Did you eventually find?
No, I didn't find anything. So I found them something else. But it's just I just didn't want to stir up. I mean, what am I going to say to the guy, right? Yeah, so.
It's an amazing I mean, the country itself is so respectful.
I know, but that was my only
that's a weird.
Such an interesting experience. But I was expecting more from food places because we went into a lot of alleyways. We went in the hole in the wall places. Everybody was so welcoming. We were very. You guys went as well. Mary told me.
Let me tell you, just eating in the train stations. You could eat all your meals in the train stations at those amazing stands and bento box places.
Oh, yeah.
We just love that.
There. I don't know if
the
you actually
7-Elevens are
walked
fantastic.
That was our late night, midnight snack place.
Amazing, amazing food. So we actually, but in the train stations, literally, it was place after place after place with just beautiful boxes, and even everything that just the gift boxes and how it's wrapped and packaged, and it's amazing. So
incredible.
Incredible.
Tokyo Station. Did you guys go to that?
Yeah, sure.
That place, I feel like you could eat there for a year and never have the same meal.
Well, also we felt for us too. It was everything is so clean and everything is so pristine, and there's no trash. There's no that you carry your plastic bag and put your trash in your bag, and then eventually you don't. So I mean, it's just it was truly one of our highlights of our trips and all the trips that we've taken throughout the
Absolutely.
world. Yeah.
The yakitori place we actually went to. I think a couple, maybe 2 or 3 total. There was one we went to twice. It was just the first night we were there, we went there, and then the last night we went again, and it was just amazing. And it's the perfect meal. I felt like I was always 80% full, which I like that. I didn't want to be over full and be sleepy on my trip. Yeah.
So did you have an agenda when you were going? As well, we talked about obviously coffee was important for you. So what did you do? Did you have certain places that you were trying to highlight or find, or you just kind of walked around, and how did it go for you?
Kind of. That's the best way to put it. There was kind of an agenda. First and foremost, the coffee places, Merril. As much as you're passionate, I feel like you're about food, the coffee was just out of this world. It was like watching a tea ceremony. I've never been to a tea ceremony in person. I've seen them on YouTube, but watching these coffee masters brew and talk about the coffee and the way they do stuff. It's just, oh my gosh, just watching master craftsmen at work, and it just blew my mind. And it's stuff that me and my buddies, the principles we learned there, we're applying to our acting craft now, which we're super excited to apply. And my buddy who's already done that, both of them who've already had auditions after the trip, I'm telling you, we feel just elevated, and it's exciting. We're approaching the work with this new fire and vigor, and
what's funny about it is that you don't perceive Japan as a coffee culture.
No, not at all. It's more tea, if anything.
Yeah. Our cousin was in Japan at the same time that you were, Kyle, and literally he was Instagramming coffee place after coffee place after coffee place. So they did the exact same thing. It's I felt like I was following two worlds that were parallel. It was very interesting.
Because remember when we were in Costa Rica, you could not go more than 3 or 4 steps without running into a free coffee stand because the coffee brands there all set up in every store. There's coffee tasting bar that's complimentary, so that you'll buy some of their coffee. Wow. And it was in my life, have I ever been that caffeinated? You're just endlessly. And if I didn't want some coffee, they had the chocolate-covered coffee beans or any other variation on wonderful caffeinated things.
Well, Merril, that's what got us through our 16-hour days of walking and biking around Japan constantly for almost 2 weeks. It was incredible. I'm so sorry. We got to take a quick break, but we'll be right back, and then I'll tell you more about the scheduling process in Japan. So our trip in Japan, in terms of planning it out, one of the intentions we had was to really follow our intuition and really get reconnected with that as actors and artists. So what we did was we had a list of things we wanted to do and a list of things we wanted to hit. And we kind of played it that morning. We would kind of plan stuff, and then that evening we'd be like, hey, maybe tomorrow we start hitting these things. So it was very go by your seat, but kind of plan things.
But
So
it's fun that way. So like the pressure's not on you. Right?
Exactly.
It's like you can do what you want to do. You can stay for as long as you want, and then you pick it up the next day, which is kind of great.
I mean,
So-
and the thing was like if something changed, we weren't like, oh no, we have to do that later. It was very flexible, which we enjoyed.
And the mistake we made, and we've made this mistake before, was that we used a guide. And we used a guide because we were concerned about language
barrier.
issues.
And also we only had a finite period of time too. So
And unfortunately, we then were dealing with his agenda.
His
agenda was not a bad agenda, but his agenda was
not our agenda.
Was not our agenda.
so we
And
kept on having to remind him.
our agenda is often, as we found in Israel, for instance, it's like, if you show me one more pile of old rocks, I will start screaming. I will get violent. We
Yeah.
want to walk around
just
the
wanna walk around the
markets.
markets.
We
We wanna
love
see
the
the
markets.
people.
Markets are where the life of the city is. Let me go to the markets. To go in Japan, as I'm sure you did, to the seafood market, to Tsukiji.
Oh, we missed that.
Actually,
I know. Well, we didn't. I know.
but also
I
don't
know.
forget the old market's not there anymore.
Oh,
so
oh,
the
they
new
had moved
market.
it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, it is fish heaven.
I know. But here's
If I was a fish and I died, I'd want to go to Tsukiji. I mean, this is it.
Oh, it was on the list, kind of. We were more interested in actually eating really good sushi, which
It's
when we
there.
I know it's there, but we just didn't have a chance, honestly.
The market is surrounded. There's like an outer market of sushi bars, of sushi stands, of sushi on the stick.
Well, it's interesting
it's
because-
crazy
well,
stuff.
I mean, at least in the old market, we don't know what the new market looks like.
Right.
Because the new market it's like a half hour from where. I mean,
No, you're off the microphone.
oh sorry.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's good, right? Yeah.
Okay.
The old market just says it's true. It's like you
Right.
have like the inner market, and then you have actually the market where all the fish is, but then everything around it. So we don't really know what the new version is, but the food is like literally again. You talk about like stall after stall after stall,
And I
but
have
you know
this
what? It gives you
memory
an opportunity to
from
go
one of the
back.
stalls for $1. I got a skewer with a chunk of lobster on the end of it, slathered with sea urchin. I love uni. I love sea urchin. And that was $1, and I ate the thing, and I walked on, and I kept thinking, I should have had 2 or 3 or 4. I'm not coming this way again soon.
Right.
I should just eat oil. You could always diet when you get back. You know, you could do your quinoa number or whatever you do. Just
But we collected things as we went along. I mean, like we really did. It was crazy. We ended up having to buy like an extra suitcase or two in order to like fill it with the things that we wanted. So like because I mean everything. It was like whether it was clothing.
Did you see a
or
chain
whether
of
it was-
stores called Don Quixote while you were there?
Oh, yeah.
It's like the 99
okay.
cent
So
store.
it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's like a multi-story 99-cent store filled with everything, including luggage. So I had to twice go over there and buy rolling carts because we had so much stuff. One of the pieces of luggage, I think pretty much the whole piece of luggage was filled with Kit Kats.
Oh, that was my friend Isaiah. He was collecting them for his wife.
Did
Yeah.
you go to the Kit Kat factory? No.
Oh, no.
Okay, because we didn't make it there either, right?
Yeah,
So, but
no,
we
did.
literally
But
we went
there were
to.
supposedly 300 different flavors. We found about 24, if even that.
We brought 'em home.
But what made me crazy when I got back, and I did not realize this, was that there are 22 exactly, Costco's in Japan. Can you imagine a Japanese Costco?
Oh man.
Can you imagine the stuff they're carrying there?
Man, I
it's
wanna
like
live
so
there so
beyond.
bad.
We just want to go
can.
back. So I said like we have an agenda when we go back, and we're gonna actually we'll do the Google Translator and we'll do all that. We'll just do it completely different.
And
way
we'll
than
move
we
at
did.
our speed,
Yeah.
and we'll move the way we want to. And we love the trains. And yes,
I
he
think
was
we were
very useful on the
intimidated.
trains.
The reason we did the guide was I think we were intimidated as we
Well,
go.
it's-
Which everybody who's gone has done exactly like you guys have done. And
If it's
was
me by
amazing.
myself, probably I'll just want to get lost. If it's me with Merri, less so. If we also have Sarah along, we want the trip to be efficient and to actually work.
I got to ask you then. Are you guys big walkers or
We
do you-
are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miles.
Okay.
Miles every day.
So you're comfortable with walking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next time you guys go, I'm gonna give you my list this time, Mary.
Exactly. It's probably a better list than we shared with you.
No, your list was great. We actually got like 3 other people's lists as well,
Right.
and we kind of like crossed out like what people matched up on. But you got to check out one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. There's this place called Cafe Mamea, and it was the single best coffee I've ever had in my life, not just for the actual brew, but for the experience of what it was. There's no sign on the place. It's in the middle of a residential area, and it's just this like black frame. You walk in, and there's a line, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're like, all this for a cup of coffee, and you know, as American culture is, you're like, come on, like I just want the coffee. What's going on? Finally, you get up there. He says, "Thank you for waiting," and he goes through his whole spiel. These three guys, they say, "We are not farmers. We are not roasters. We are just baristas. We just focus on the actual brewing. That's it." He starts going through this list of all the coffee that they have and starts describing it. And I was watching them, what funnels they use for what coffee to exaggerate the aroma of one while another one exaggerates the flavor, and watching them do this. I mean, it was just bonkers.
And how did you even stumble upon that?
My buddy Isaiah, so he
Okay.
works at a coffee place. He's a manager at one, and he's a barista. That's his like day job. He's an actor though. He's the guy I do my Sunday acting classes with.
Okay, great.
Yeah, phenomenal actor. And he had this list of coffee places because he's a big coffee guy, and I'm a big tea guy. So I was thinking I'd go to Japan and be like, "Oh, I'm going to try all these cool tea places." It was totally the opposite. It was all these coffee places, and coffee is so popular in Japan nowadays. It is an incredible thing. So I'll have to share that with you.
That's amazing.
The
That's
third
amazing.
story I wanted to share with you guys in terms was kind of on the opposite end. It was such a good experience. Me and my brother, we love to go to sushi places, and we have gone to so many, and we kind of understand what to have first when you order, and we like sitting at the bar. We like to get to know the sushi chef, and we started ordering very specific cuts of fish in a certain order. And right next to us was this married couple, and the woman was Japanese, and we're super like OCD about the way we put our chopsticks and everything. Like we just want to experience the food in such a pure way. And she could tell, like, "Oh, you guys know what you're doing. You've ordered before, right? I heard your order." And then we started talking about some fish and sushi, and so it was pretty amazing on the opposite end of that spectrum of food, and getting to know people. And again,
Yeah.
it's people at the end of the day.
And
It's also when we were sitting at the sushi bar for us too. I think it's like, you know, so many people are intimidated about who's to your left and who's to your right. Like we're like Merrill's like the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, if you're sitting at the sushi bar, or sitting at you turn around, you just start talking to people.
Yeah.
and it's so fun. I mean, we've actually, for us, like in our travels, we've actually met amazing people, and to this day, we're still really good friends. Like we were on a train 10 hours while we were in Peru, going from Cusco to Lake Titicaca, and we met this wonderful
Can I
couple.
say that again? Titicaca. Go ahead.
Met this incredible couple from New York. To this day, we're still friends. They come out here every
wow.
single February. They hang out. They actually live here for a month, and we're just, you know, we're the best of. And it's that's the experience of traveling and meeting new people.
And we
seeing.
laugh at the
So-
German couple sitting near us who, after we'd been chatting for about 2 or 3 hours, finally turned to us and said, "Why do you Americans talk so much?"
We never stopped talking for 10 hours. But it's like, when we're
It's like, why do you
spending 10
Germans,
hours-
you know, not talk so much? I don't
They were just
get it.
everything was very prim and proper, and we were like the gift to gab, so it was actually very fun.
Well, we were, you know, a kid from the Bronx talking the Bronx,
Yeah.
you know, guy from you know, the Upper West Side of New York, a soccer coach. We were just talking trash, you're doing what you do. But it is, you gotta be willing to get down there with the people. Otherwise your trip is just get in the bus, you know, go through the bubble, you know, look at the stuff through the bubble, get back on the bus. It's just kind of horrifying.
Did you do a lot of the train when you were in Japan, or did you do like mostly walking then? Like,
No,
how
it
was
was-
this
I mean-
experience of both?
Both. I mean, when it was
Yeah.
raining, which was only like a day or two, we took the train,
Right.
and that was cool and stuff. But I mean, the train system there is like the best train system
amazing.
in the entire
It's
world.
amazing.
I will say it's the number
Yeah.
one in the world. I've been to London's, Rome's, Paris's, Dubai's, New York and Chicago and LA, Tokyo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number
Well,
one
we
for me.
actually felt too, where like when you figure when you go into the train and like really everybody has their space. I mean, you're shoulder to shoulder, but it's so respectful as people
Yeah.
come out of the train first before the people actually go in. You know, it's just
Oh.
so amazing. This systematic everything. is
Incredible.
there. Yeah.
So, kind of back to the genesis of you and Mary, when did you guys meet up? Did you meet in California or somewhere else?
We went on a blind date.
Oh,
Just after the Northridge earthquake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh wow, in
just
California.
In California. In
Yeah.
LA.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. And were you working on Star Trek at that time?
I was working on Star Trek, and my girlfriend's goal was to get me married, and and literally she would like find people on the street and ask them like to go out with me, which was like ridiculous. And I'm like, I don't really need that. Like I'm working so hard on Saturday nights, I don't have to go out on a date. I'm really happy and comfortable with myself. I love going to get my yogurt on Saturday night and literally sitting in front of the TV and just relaxing. So on a Tuesday afternoon, Merril calls up, and meanwhile, I have to preface this that Merril was doing a show on the radio on KBC, and at that time they would have magazine. And Merrill's face happened to be on the magazine on the front cover with the article about him. My parents listened to him for many, many, many years because my father literally listened. Like KBC was on in our house whether it was baseball, watching the Dodgers, or on Saturdays with all of the shows. So Merril calls up and goes, "Hello, it's Merril Shindler, and my buddy Richard told me I need to feed you." And so I said, "That's great." And he goes, "When are you available?" And I'm like, he goes, "How about Saturday night after my show?" And I'm like, "That's great."
And take note, it's Tuesday.
It's
I'm calling on Tuesday. I'm following all the basic rules, right? Tuesday
I
for
go,
Saturday.
Let me look at my calendar. I'm like, okay, I'm free. That's great. And so I hung up and I called my father immediately. And I'm like, "Dad, you're never going to believe who asked me out." So that day, my father literally comes over with the magazine, puts it on my coffee table so I can actually see what Merril looked like, so he wouldn't be the blind date anymore. So fast forward to
and she still went out with me. Isn't that amazing? Rather than having just maybe moved in the middle of the night and changed her phone number, she still went out. I can't understand
You're a handsome guy, Merril.
So fast forward
Hard to say no to you.
Fast forward to Saturday, and the earthquake had happened. I have a girlfriend of mine who's now living in my home because her condo had been red tagged, and so
What does that mean?
That means that she couldn't. It went off its foundation.
Condemned.
and
Oh, because
so
of the
it's
earthquake.
condemned.
Oh,
So
okay,
she
gotcha.
was living with me, and so Merril. So I'm of the ilk where I always have to confirm, whether. So that's just my nature. It's like if you're gonna call me on Tuesday for a Saturday, let's just go ahead
And I'm of the ilk of I'm a man of my word. I said I'll pick you up Saturday. I'll pick you up Saturday.
So he's
Boom.
picking me up a Saturday at 7:30 at that. And I have to say, it's been a long time. It was like 22, 24 years ago. So, we didn't have texting. We didn't have
Right.
all of that. So it was literally that I'm a man of my word. I'm going to go ahead and pick you up. So my girlfriend and I said at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if he doesn't show up at 7:30 because he hasn't called, then we're just going out at 8 o'clock. So knock, 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 7:30 on the door. He picks me up, and we end up going out to a restaurant in Pasadena. Meanwhile, at that time, I exercised every single day, had a regimen, and a vegetarian, didn't eat fried food, didn't eat anything. I mean, I was like very restricted in how I ate. And Merril took me to a place called the Barclay, which is still there in Pasadena. It's about 45 minutes away from where we live in West LA. And the reason was obviously he wanted to get to know me, to communicate with me, and everything on the plate was served was fried. So I moved food around the entire meal. Deep fried everything. So didn't eat a thing. Brought everything home to my girlfriend, and worked together ever since.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fed you a little better since then.
Yes.
But
And I changed my eating habits.
But I have to say that,
So-
and my eating habits also cleaned up a great deal too. But we fit well together because Mary, because of her job schedule, because of her TV schedule, works fairly demonic hours, and when she comes home, doesn't really want to run out to some possibly sketchy restaurant in some decidedly sketchy part of the world. And I'm like, it's fine. I'll go. I'll take care. I'll look into it. I'll see what's there. And sometimes I'll say, hey, you missed a good one. And she'll say, bring some stuff home. And sometimes I'll say, yeah, you dodged a bad one there. And sometimes the story is just about the place and not the food. And it's my Gestalt view of restaurants is like, mediocre food in a really fun restaurant, yeah, it's still a pretty fun evening. It's still okay. You don't want bad food, but if it's not okay, this is not world class, but hey, these are pretty good chicken wings. I'm having a pretty good time here. Yeah. And so you remember, for instance, when I went to Taiwan has the Taiwanese have and the Chinese in general have an obsession with theme restaurants. And the themes are themes like no themes we've ever seen.
Really?
And so, definitely. And so a place opened out in the valley called the Magic Restroom Cafe. Okay, where
It's no longer there.
It's no longer there.
So don't worry
But
about
it was there briefly. It had lines to get in, and then they disappeared. And you sit, long tables, and you sit on toilet seats.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Now they're not functioning toilet seats.
That's like something that
they're
I
not.
will
They're
not
not.
be
They're not
going
functioning
to,
toilet
so.
seats. They're just. So one of the things you discover when you get in to sit down is that sitting on a toilet seat for an hour is not comfortable, nor is it even good for your sciatic nerve. It's pretty bad stuff.
Yeah.
But there was more to it. The food was served in small bowls in the shape of toilet bowls.
Oh, yeah, I'm out.
So they brought you the food. You're sitting on a toilet, and they bring you toilet bowls of food. And I don't want to be judgmental about the food, but it looked like it was appropriately placed.
Why is that a thing? Like, why is
Because
that?
it was a theme. People thought it was funny. It was fun to go
Well,
to.
funny for some,
Everyone
not
was
for
there.
us.
It was fun, and then people stopped going there because they realized the food was really terrible.
Yeah, but circling back is that I think between both of our schedules is that we now we pick and choose, like, what am I going to go to? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Where, what's important for us when
That's
we're,
fair.
like on a Saturday night, just because it's like he goes to the end of the world, and sometimes it's like, you know what, I just
LA's
need to
a
have
big city.
I just need to have 2 hours to do my work or relax. I can't spend it in the car. So
Exactly. And people who don't, I mean, the majority of our listeners on this show are in LA, but we have some people who live outside. It's a trek at 5 o'clock, right? If it's not like, if there's traffic,
Right.
if you're going 10 miles, that's going
Well,
to
we
take
do-
you a
And that's
while.
why Sunday for me is a big day.
Yeah, and
Oh,
also we
yeah.
live on the west side, and so for us to go from west to east these days, I mean, sometimes for us to go downtown can take us 2 hours. So we choose,
Literally.
but at the same time, we get in the car and we do it, and it becomes about we call it the adventure, and
Yes.
the fact that we can all be together, and a lot of times, like, we'll go out when our daughter's in town from school, we pick certain restaurants that we know that we want to get to, and you know what, if we do a 6:30 meal or a 7 o'clock meal, we know we have to get into the car at 5:30, and it is what it is. You just do it. So it doesn't.
And
become a
there's the
big thing.
serendipity
Absolutely.
of finding the, as I've encountered, certainly with you, certainly with Sarah, our daughter, is you go to a restaurant and you walk in and you go, okay, this doesn't look good. It smells bad. Right off, it smells bad. Okay, what else is around here? And I sort of look around and I go, okay, there's that place across the street. That looks like a pretty good dumpling place. Let's go there. And you wind up pure serendipity, pure just leave yourself open. And one of my favorite experiences was we have a number of Chinese Islamic restaurants in town. It's the food of the people of northwest China. They're called the Uyghurs.
No pork.
No pork,
pork.
lots of lamb,
Yeah.
lots of dumplings, lots of bread.
Sorry, what's it called? The people called?
UIGYUYHUR. UIGYH.
UIG what?
UIGHYUR. Uyghur.
This is sparked
Is it
my
spelling bee?
Am I winning? Am I losing?
We're not.
pull it
I'm
out.
not going to win the spelling bee.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's
I was
see.
close. No, I.
That's usually pretty good for you, Merril.
Yeah.
That's actually you're right on.
I'm a good speller.
I know.
Okay, you guys live
Okay.
primarily in the.
And their food is terrific. And so Mary had to go to a memorial out on the other end of the universe, way the heck out there.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I will drive you, but I'm going to go to a restaurant nearby because there's a whole other Chinese community out there. And so I did a little research. And I found that there was a Uyghur restaurant out there called Silk Road. And I mentioned it to Sarah, who wasn't going to go. And she said, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll go. We went to this restaurant that looked like an antique store. It had pots all over. It had carpets. And it had a menu that went on for pages and pages and pages. And a lot of the dishes were things, in the English translation, it's like, happy family 5 ways. What's in it? I don't know what's in it. Is it actually a happy family? It's not so happy anymore. I don't know what's in it. So I'm staring at the menu, and the owner comes over. He says, I understand your confusion. It's a big menu. Here's a second menu of our 25 favorite dishes at the restaurant with pictures.
And they had a
it was
music
like it was
time.
like it was like a very simple. This foreign policy for Trump. Just pictures, very simple, not too many words.
Right.
And so we ordered a bunch of dishes from there. Mind blowing, fantastic.
called?
The place called Silk Road. It's in, I think, Roland Heights or Hacienda Heights.
Because I was in City and Industry.
You were City of Industry,
you were like the next town over.
And
was,
we took a bag home, and that's one of the great joys of this food. You'll go out to these restaurants, and you'll eat and eat and eat, and you'll take a bag or 2 bags home, and it'll still be under $20 a person. And you go, how the heck do they actually pay their workers? I'm really not sure.
Well, it's just always interesting too. What we have found in the world out, there too, like in that community, it's all generational, right? So it's so lovely to actually see. So when you're sitting at the table, and there is like whether we're going with another family, or whether it's 3, I mean, you see generations, right? So you see,
a table of 12
with the grandparents and the parents and the kids and those kids, and it warms our heart because that's how sort of we have grown up in our world, and so, but it's just great to see people and communicating, and the phones are down, and it's just all about family.
It also makes eating in those restaurants very difficult for me by myself or me with one other person, because many of them just have tables for 10 and 12, and you walk in with 2 people, and they're going, "What do you want? We don't want you. We got a table with 12. What's 2 going to be?"
That's one of the reasons why I think I've enjoyed working with you, Merri, so much. After I had a discussion with you, Merri, and your daughter, I think it was in New York.
We were in New York.
Yeah, and I sat down, got to know you guys. It was
we're
really
in the lobby. It was so great.
It was such a great conversation, and universally, maybe we got pulled because we vibrate on that same level, of like family values and that kind of stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like you guys a lot. And it's not surprising that you get pulled into restaurants that appreciate family values and that community aspect. It's just, I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about that recently too, like the importance of family, and I've just been really grateful, especially in the last couple of years, with my father's accident last year, his recovery process. It's been quite the mental, spiritual, and at times a physical journey for all of us. So, and this is why I'm so interested to have you on today, especially you, to talk about CBD and everything, because you come from certain conservative values, certain value, with the perspectives. I've heard you on your previous podcast talk about, like, you guys didn't know much about marijuana, CBD. And if I'm not mistaken, it was kind of like, that stuff is not good, or marijuana is not good, or it's more like we don't know what that stuff is, so we'll just stay away from it. And now it's like kind of on the opposite end.
Well, I think actually it's going into medical marijuana, but mostly CBD, and that's which Merril can talk about. Well, we had almost about a year and almost 2 years, a year and a half ago now, Merril.
Yeah.
But a year and a half ago, Merril was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder.
Right.
And it took us about 3 or 4 months to figure out what it is. Mm-hmm. It's called bullous pemphigoid.
Bullous pemphigoid.
Pemphigoid. And he wasn't getting relief. We were literally going from doctors. It's a very rare, 20,000 people have it.
Yeah, it's like really itchy,
it's just autoimmune. It's like basically you've got a chicken pox from head to toe, and it took us. I would go from dermatologist to dermatologist, and they would go.
First, they thought it was like an eczema, and then
using
they thought it was
allergies.
an allergy.
It's using a different soap or something. They had no idea what it was.
Nothing had changed in anything that we had
indeed,
done.
Even when I told them what I had been diagnosed as, I had to get a biopsy to get that. They still said, "Wow, I've seen this in books. I've never actually seen it in person before."
There's only 4 doctors who are actually in the state of California that actually treat it, and so one at UCLA, one at USC, one at Davis, and one at Stanford. And so our dermatologist, and we had gone through a whole series of doctors, and it was a weird set of circumstances. But I had a girlfriend of mine who we had over for the holidays, and at that time Merril was like November, December was really, that's when he was getting, it was the height of it, going into February. And in December, my girlfriend said she had been itching all over, similar to him, and she ended up having lymphoma. And so after trying to figure out what this was and not getting any results, I finally called my doctor, my internist. I'm like, he's got to go get a CAT scan, because I have to make sure this is not lymphoma and that there's no cancer going on that's not showing. And so we got him in 2 hours later, and this wonderful doctor David Hoffman, right? Is that his name?
Yes.
So in Beverly Hills, he literally called. So Merril was there for 4 hours, 6 hours. They took blood. Did a series of tests. And
Wow.
at 6:00 at night, he comes in, and I'm on the
17
phone.
blood samples.
And he said,
Whoa.
if I'm a betting, because you don't have cancer, but if I'm a betting man, you have bullous pemphigoid. And
And I think he said it was something I've heard about, but I've never actually seen.
it.
But it's something I've read about.
And he had learned about it in medical school. That's
Yeah.
how he.
And it was just sort of a very educated guess. And I went back to my dermatologist. He said, okay, you have to get, let's do 3 biopsies. Come back here when some of the blisters are really lively, as it were. And that they did.
Is this it?
Yeah, that's it.
Bullous pemphigoid.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's gnarly.
It's gnarly. So the journey for us was I had gone. I was actually going to D.C. or New York. I can't remember it was either for. I think I was going to visit Sarah.
Yeah.
And friends of ours actually came over, and I said, you have to watch him during the weekend because he was in such bad pain. But it was it was a situation where I had to get to DC for the weekend. So we had 2 friends come over, one with a lotion, which was a CBD lotion, and the other one was actually a medical marijuana. And you
a little vape.
like
a little vape.
Yeah,
pen.
yeah.
And that was to actually, because he had not been sleeping at all. I mean, there's constantly itching, and as you saw, what those blisters are, it was now forming all over his body. So, fast forward we then started to get into the world of trying to learn and explore and understand the world of medical cannabis and the world of CBD to try to give him relief. And so,
Yes.
At the time, it was medical only. This was before it was recreational.
What year was this?
This is a year and a half ago.
A year and a half. Okay. Sorry, we got to take a quick break, but
Great.
then we'll continue it right after the break.
Great.
Now, this bullous
Pemphigoid.
pemphigoid.
Bullous pemphigoid. It's also
Yeah.
a Turkish chicken dish.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's,
Or we could have made it into one.
right.
yeah.
Is this genetic, or is this caused by something, or is it?
No. Autoimmune.
Autoimmune.
No one
It's
knows.
Autoimmune, yeah. I mean,
Which
so
means-
we autoimmune means it's like there's no rhyme or reason that it's obviously been dormant in your body for forever, and at some point in time, for whatever reason or manifests itself, we think actually possibly a stressful situation could have
Right.
happened. So because there was really no change in our environment or what
Right.
so.
But our daughter had just left for college.
Sarah had just left.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stress, that we were feeling as parents of empty nesters, and so I think that could have actually triggered
And
it.
a few months before, I had an attack of shingles.
Right.
Which
Oh,
that
my dad
could-
had
could-
that.
Could have
That's
that could have
horrible.
triggered it.
Oh man, he
Yeah.
was out. That was
Yeah.
before the accident, I think. Anyway, but I wanted to pinpoint exactly what it was like for you, specifically when you got the ointment. Were you like, "Oh, this is not going to help," or
Well,
were you like,
I'd gone through a whole bunch of very high rent, long name medications, creams and such. Mary was spending a lot of time slathering this stuff on me. One of them was like a little can, really smaller than a can of shaving cream.
It was actually.
It was tiny. I think it's
It
even
was tiny.
smaller than
Yeah,
the
it was like
little yerba mate
Yeah.
can there. And it was a foam, and it didn't feel half bad. And a month's supply lasted me about 3 days. So I went back to the pharmacy. I said, "Look, I know you can't refill it, but I'll just pay cash for it." And they looked at me and said, "It's $996.25." And it was like, if you're asking me to pay $996 for a drug, can you drop the quarter?
Right.
Is that necessary? Actually, can you just make it around 1,000 rather than
Yeah.
990? What is that supposed to make it seem cheaper? I don't quite get that number. So we sort of passed on that one until it could be refilled. And friends suggested, and at the time you had to get the medical permit, which was incredibly easy to get, a no-brainer, to go to the commissaries, not commissaries, dispensaries. Thank you.
Commissaries.
You know,
I was like, I know what you're talking about. I
to
know
go
what
to the
you're talking about.
dispensaries, and you had to sign in and everything, and you go in and What was kind of interesting was that because it was medical only at the time, you'd go in and they would give you samples of things, which they can't do now. That's recreational, and I kind of miss the samples because, the stuff is basically a crapshoot. You never know what's going to work and what's not. But I had gone in, I had gotten some salve that had. It had eucalyptus in it, it had menthol in it, and it did make the itching go away because I was in so much pain from the eucalyptus and the menthol on my extremely sensitive skin that I didn't notice the itching at all. I was too busy like pounding the wall and crying. So I went back. I said, "Look, do you have anything that doesn't have this in it?" And they had a product called a Apothecana, and it didn't have anything in it, and we put it on my back. And
it's like instant relief.
It was like I turned to Merri. I said, "The itching's gone.
Yeah,
it's gone. It's just gone."
It was so interesting because it had lavender. It had like it was like it was just
it's
whatever
just
the
gone.
blend was.
Wow.
The blend was that it was just it. It was so. I mean, we did a combination of different things. I mean, as far as just different lotions. We tested everything. Like we were at the point in our life. Like I actually had just finished For the People. I was doing a pilot. It was the first time, literally, I left the pilot because all I could concentrate was on getting him well. So we literally, my days were spent with, like looking on the internet, talking to people, like just trying to go. We were going from doctor to doctor. Bandaging, just like trying to go. So we went through a lot of, and that was, as soon as that happened, and that Apothecana that he's talking about was actually a CBD cream only at that point in time, I think, right? Or did
it may have THC in it. There's a whole thing where we should explain to people that because I talk about this all the time. I do a podcast, POTCAST, called High on the Hog, which you can find. Just Google High on the Hog, the podcast, and we're up to 26 now. And we talk with different people about their products, about their experiences. And it's been universally across the board complicated. There's actually a company that does akin to 23andMe, a DNA analysis of your DNA to find out what you react to, which cannabinoids you react to.
Well, I think actually when we talk about, like, for us, like when we started getting into this world, there was fear for us because we are not people who indulge in any kind
of druggies.
We're not into marijuana or that world, and so for us it was opening up a whole new world of what is it? How does it work? How does it respond? What do we use? What's the difference between CBD and THC? And so as Merril can, and so we actually got friends, like it was like friends of friends. Got introduced to a woman named Janice Hardoon, who actually owns a dispensary and now a CBD store here in Los Angeles. And so we connected Merril with that person. We connected Merril with Joanna Belson, who now is involved in doing like marketing. And so the three of them together it came from different worlds, from like different reasons. And Janice had ailments, and so that's how she got into the world. And so it opened up, and she would do edibles for pain and help. So we got the three of them together, and Merril for the last year has really been researching that world. Janice knows that world. She knows the people, and she knows the products. And so that's when Merril talks about having people on his podcast every week. It's because they're talking about different things. And it's so interesting for all of us who are fearful or don't know or want to know more, because everybody comes from an experience, right? Of like, I had this and I couldn't, medically, I wasn't able to get treated or get help and results. So therefore, I went on my own, and I've researched, and this was the end result. And so for us, we still use, everything, the CBD and sometimes THC, depending on the pain. Do we go ahead and twice a day he lathers up in the lotion, and that's how he's staying, sane.
That seems to be a common problem with people. My parents also have dabbled a little bit with the CBD products, I feel like for the people who are uneducated about, like, oh, you can get CBD, they think, oh, I'm going to get high from it or something. And so it's all the information's out there. And what I love about your podcast is that it really breaks it down for people. These are the stuff that works for us. This is why. These are the personal experiences backed by science. And I think that's very beneficial for people who want pain relief in a natural, holistic way. We forget that medicine like most medicine comes from plants. You know, you even mentioned this on one of your videos, I believe.
You did a whole podcast about that.
Yeah, where you're
aspirin comes from willow bark.
Yeah.
You know, this stuff is there's so much stuff in the Amazon rainforest. Hopefully, we'll find it all or some more of it before they tear down the rainforest. But very simply, THC is the psychoactive element of cannabis.
That's the stuff that gets you, quote unquote, high.
Right.
Yeah.
CBD is one of about 100 different elements, of which very few have been researched because the government believes that that heroin and marijuana are pretty much the same thing,
which they're not. Which
they're not. It's horrifying.
And there's also only one place right now in the United States that you can actually get your medical marijuana from, which is in Mississippi, to go ahead and for people to do testing. So right, am I correct?
And
now?
there's so much good stuff grown here in California, up in Oregon, and in Washington. It's unbelievable. But it's just one of 100 different elements, and CBD does not have a psychoactive element, does not get you stoned. In fact, if you are stoned and you take CBD, it will counteract the THC. It will bring you down. It also, there are studies, non-governmental of course, that say that CBD can counteract opioids and can get you off opioid addiction. And you think maybe the government might be interested in this, but they are so totally like locked in place about it. It's really kind of horrifying.
But we actually went to at UCLA. We went to a lecture on a seminar on medical cannabis and cancer and the side effects. So that actually there's a lot of doctors who, and actually when the wellness community of UCLA is using medical cannabis to help with side effects, be it whatever that is when you're having chemotherapy and things like that. And they've really seen it has helped so many people.
Wow.
Right? So,
but as they've said over and over again, everything we tell you is anecdotal. Right. We cannot do the $1 million double-blind study because the government won't let us. We can't take money at UCLA from any of the cannabis companies because UCLA will not let us. It is the country that is doing the best research right now in medical cannabis is Israel. Israel is doing amazing work there. But to go to the stores now, and yes, now that's recreational, which I have mixed feelings about, lean towards the negative. You get a fair number of stoners. Our in there for the flowers, in there for the buds. Our show is not for stoners. Our show is for a demographic of people who are trying to heal, and there are so many studies. Well, not I can't say studies. There's so much anecdotal experience in a movie we saw called Weed the People, which was about a study of it followed 4 kids with pediatric cancer. 3 of them went into total remission. 1 of them did not. But 3 out of 4 ain't bad.
It's an amazing. It's a documentary it's
very moving. I had a woman on yesterday.
Ricky Lake, I think actually.
Ricky Lake was one of the producers.
It's.
I had a woman on yesterday who had at age 20 had ovarian cancer. Yeah. And she had 1 ovary removed. They said that should be it. A year later, it came back. They were going to give her radiation, chemotherapy, et cetera, et cetera. She said, I can't do this. And she started, and this was in Ohio, where they're not really very cannabis friendly. She just started researching herself. She started doing it in her own kitchen, and she went into remission thanks to the drugs she was able to create for herself. And now she's creating a line of cannabis products that are of all things vaginal inserts. And she said there are also ones that are she seems to work below the belt a lot. There are ones that are also prostate inserts that will help with possible prostate cancer.
Wow.
And it's like, do not write this stuff off. Do not write it off. Yes, a lot of it seems goofy, and some of the ads seem goofy, and some of the the podcast seemed goofy. We ain't goofy. I mean, we're serious. I'm a
very
little
educational.
wacky myself, but
also, there's a lot of like
information
with Janice's stores, Koreatown Collective. Koreatown Collective. There's a lot of athletes. People who are coming in for pain management. When it comes to, there's a lot of arthritis. There's a lot of there's all
Right.
these people who have different things. That's and you find that there's different approaches to different, depending on what your ailment is. And
Right.
it takes a time. Sometimes you have to go through 2, 3, 4, 5 different products in order to find the product that's going to work for you.
You're hitting on something that I wanted to bring up with you guys, which I think is really important. Have you guys the placebo effect as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah.
Mindset. Whenever you're putting on these ointments and stuff like that, is there a specific mindset you have whenever you are putting it on? Because I feel like that plays tremendously into the healing process. Yes, there's like science-based facts that if you put this ointment on, it will help. But there's this wonderful test that was done, and they told a group of people who had like some kind of rash on both their arms, and they gave them ointment A, and then ointment B for one arm. So on ointment A, which was the actual medication, they said, hey, this stuff does not work. It rarely works. We're just trying to see if it has any effect. And then on ointment B was nothing. It was just like a simple moisturizer. Like there was nothing in it. And they told them, this is the stuff that's going to heal you. For the majority of people, ointment B worked for them on
Yeah.
their arm.
Yeah.
So is there any kind of
Well,
mindset you have when you're putting it on?
Like I think I don't know if what we're putting on, like we just know in our world of just with so many friends and family, I have a cousin who's actually suffering from cancer, and he's an elite athlete, and he was an Olympic athlete,
Wow.
and his mindset truly, and like we watch him every single day. We watch him, and how it is a mindset, right? And how you go ahead and you approach everything in our lives, how you approach everything in your life, and if it is. This is not going to get me, like this is, I am going to heal myself through A, B, and C. And I think
Yes.
it is. I mean, it does help. I think it does help when you obviously go to the positive, don't go to the negative, right? I mean, because if you can change the channeling of how your brain is thinking, always being on the positive is going to be helping.
On the other hand, I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I don't believe in all sorts of, nonsense. But it's really hard to argue with cancers going into remission.
Right.
That's not a random thing that cancers decide to do. Oh, I'm bored kind of hanging around this body. I'm going
Right.
to go someplace else. No, it's not. I am a great believer, more than Mary, I'm a great believer in Western medicine. It's like, she'll go for her acupuncture and I'll go, the only needle I want stuck in me has some injectable in it. I'm not doing all that.
But I believe so much in mind over matter.
And she believes
I'm
it.
that person who get away from like the Western drugs. Stay if you don't have to. And I think for us and our family too. I mean, our daughter too. Like we don't really take a lot of medicine. We take it when we need it, when we're really feeling because we do know in our world that has helped us too, right?
Yeah.
It's the only way to be able to cure us. And if we didn't have that medicine, but there has to be a balance of both.
Thank you
and
so
I
much
think
for
that's
saying that.
exactly
Yeah.
so what we have learned is that if you're going to do A, you do B, and I think symptomatically, it's almost when you take probiotics when you're taking an antibiotic, right? So because it's eating, you don't want to eat away all the good bacteria. So for us, it's like I'm always the one who's going towards the healing with the Eastern medicine more than I am going into Western medicine. But I also know that I will be the first person to send you to the doctor, to get that research and to get it done.
And I know when I was itching my brains out and we were putting on all sorts of, high rent medications and nothing was happening. And then we put on the simple stuff from a cannabis store and the itching stopped, that I wasn't imagining it. This was not placebo. If it was placebo effect, the high rent stuff should have done something too.
Yeah.
And it just didn't. So look,
there's so much money that's falling into the CBD world, like just as far as investments. When you're talking about just like athletes and lawyers and big companies and pharma. So
Yeah.
you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. The
These
headphones
headphones,
are pinching,
yeah.
are pinching
Okay,
my glasses.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to take them off a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like when you think about when like we constantly we find like who is backing, like we'll read articles or we'll see articles and who's going ahead and investing into the CBD world right now.
Martha Stewart.
Stewart. When you're having, I mean, there's actually chefs that are literally now doing CBD and medical marijuana. Like they did, like for Passover, we know a chef who was actually doing Passover seders, right? That actually and we just actually, a friend of ours gave us CBD coffee, and we were actually going to serve it during Passover just to see what people feel. But we decided, I mean, we just didn't do it. But it's a whole new approach.
And yes, and one has to be very cautious because there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of lack of control, lack of studies, lack of quality control. And so you go to reliable stores, reliable dispensaries. You get reliable brands like Papa and Barkley and Charlotte's Web that
Oh, Charlotte's Web is good. I bought that for my mom.
Yeah.
Are from the Stanley brothers in Colorado. That are very well studied. But, not far from us here in the Valley, there's an ice cream place that for $2 extra would put CBD on your ice cream. Well, what are they putting on your ice cream? Maybe it's a little canola oil for $2? I mean, who the heck knows? Yeah. How do you know? You don't know.
Well, that's why
there are
going to
CBD coffee shops out there for a few dollars extra. What are you actually getting? Possibly nothing. And that's why there have been, there have been exposés on various TV shows where they picked up a dozen different CBD products and found there was CBD in only 2 of them. Well, yeah, you cherry pick stuff that was not well curated.
Well, this is something I brought up to Joanna, your producer on the show.
Sure, producer.
Yeah, and then and I'd actually like to bring up to you and see if you guys would be down for it. I've never taken CBD. I've tried, for full disclosure on air, I've tried getting high twice. Nothing happened. And so I was like, all right, I'm good. Like, I don't really do recreational drugs.
You're high in life, brother.
Oh, I have to be.
He starts at 5 o'clock in the morning running with the coyotes.
Right?
In the dark.
Oh, don't tell my mom that. She literally.
Oh my God.
She called me today. She's like, "Are you back yet?" She was like following my. I'm like, I FaceTime with her. I'm like, in my home. The mountain lion didn't get me. I'm good.
I see when I'm like, what is he doing 5 o'clock in the morning with the flashlight in the mountains? Like, we live up in the hills, and all I can tell you, the other day, like the coyotes were like right out on our block, and the mountain lions literally are coming down our block, and we're like, oh my God, Wesam, please be careful.
Here's the thing. Side note, I take all the necessary precautions. I have my big bamboo bow staff, which is like a walking stick. I play my music real loud, and I have in my pocket a little knife, just in case things get really bad. And so the mountain lion hears me coming from a while. So so I've mitigated as much as I can any dangers. But I wanted to see, if possible, sometimes I'll get like, I'm working out too much, or I get a pain in my like knee or my ankle. I want to give CBD a shot and maybe like try like some kind. We could figure out maybe some kind of test, maybe like a CBD test for a month and see what it does to my life. How's my mood change? What types of products I'm using? I think that'd be fun.
It's subtle. You arguably won't feel anything.
Yeah,
very arguably, it's like you have to focus on what the issue is that you're trying to deal with. If it's anxiety, I mean, we can talk about.
Well, we have a couple different things. So when it talks about like I always carry my stress in my basically my shoulders and my back, and so there's a new ointment that came out that I've been using, and I feel complete relief. So I put it on at nighttime, and it's a little bit, and it also takes away just the pain, because there's sometimes where I literally cannot I cannot put my head back and forth.
Oh, I need the name of that. So my mom suffers from that.
And it's amazing. And then there's also, we suffer. We have anxiety. It's like the stress of our business is great, and our daughter also suffers. Everybody has at this point in time, especially as a student, going through anxiety. So rather than going ahead and taking medicine, whereas there's a lozenge that we use, that's a CBD lozenge that we now get from Koreatown Collective, and it helps us. It helps Sarah. It helped me, and it literally takes the edge off of the anxiety. And it's just sucking on the lozenge. And sometimes we take like half a lozenge. There's no THC in it. So for us, it was important for our daughter, like not to have any of the THC, especially at her age and as a
However,
college student.
people shouldn't be afraid of THC either. There's something called the entourage effect, where THC and CBD in a product together work better than separately. And that needs to be more studied. And if you go to some of the more reputable products, you will find that they'll always tell you the ratio. Is it 3-to-1? Is it 1-to-3? Is it 30-to-1? You know, whatever. You probably won't understand that, except to understand that there is some THC in here.
And we've
it's
taken,
helping.
we have mints that are actually THC that I actually
Right.
sometimes at nighttime, well, I shouldn't say so, like I'm actually of late just because I'm up, my work hours have been so incredible that I need to be able to just calm myself down to be able to sleep at night for a few hours. So I'm taking a half a mint, let's say, like probably 3 times a week now. And literally by time.
Very tasty mints, by
It's
the way.
very tasty mints,
Yeah.
and literally I take a half a mint, and a half hour later, I'm actually just completely calm, and I wake up feeling rested after 4 hours. And so, and I've been sharing those with others just because everybody who we know in our world, everybody's stressed out. Everybody just has so much anxiety that's going on in their world.
But there's
and
no
so-
sense to it of
Being
you
high.
just took a Vicodin. There's no sense of you
Yeah,
just
people
I
don't
just
wanna
don't
take-
feel that.
Yeah, I think in our world that people don't want to take, and I think for us too, we don't want to take things that are addictive, right? So
Nor do I have the rush of coffee. You know, I just none of that stuff really.
Well, that is amazing that you guys have that mindset. I mean, I saw what that heavy medication can do, especially like neurological medication, gabapentin, for instance, or some of the other neurological stuff, like for pain mitigation. I mean, when you see a parent or a loved one on just like all this neurological medication, you're like, oh, that's not my parent anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't want, even though it might help sometimes, but like you just see like that's not the person I love anymore. It's like totally changing them. So it gives me hope that with CBD and with more time and more studies that happen, that maybe there'll be something to.
I think I was given gabapentin for my shingles for the
pain,
the nerve pain afterwards. I think I took one.
Yeah.
And I said, "This is making me sick.
Yeah,
I
you
can't
actually
do
had to
this."
come
I
off
was
of it.
I was like I was a zombie. I just could not. I said, "I'd rather be in pain." But it's the same that I had a knee replaced, and they gave me like lots of Norco, and it was. I think I took one. And I said, oh, I
Which we're
can't
done
do
with
this.
toilet.
I'll just. I'd really rather be in pain than feel like this.
But there's a lot of people right now that we find that Janice, like in our we're on like heavier drugs who are wanting to come off of that, and so are just going cold turkey and like now doing CBD or THC rather than being involved in opioid world.
Right.
So because those drugs are so addictive, and so they've had a lot of people who have come to them to go ahead and to help, and it's helped, and so. That's why, like, we've sort of become like the converters and believers in it because, and there's certain things for certain people, and but as long as you're open and willing to try, and and it's been like my mom. My mom's she's 87 today.
Oh, wow.
And she asked us. She came to. We actually did we had an open house of talking about CBD, and Merril did. I think we had 50 or 60 people at a friend's house, and my mom was there, and she said, "Mary, I have all my friends have ailments, so whether it's from like playing cards or like yarn, or they have arthritis, or they're." So we had like 10 or 12 people at her home, and we had Janice come and talk, and every single one of them have been using this one cream. It's like the miracle drug.
Wow.
And or I shouldn't say it's not a drug. It's the cream, but it has helped their arthritis. So like my mom said, who like in the morning she couldn't, after knitting or playing cards, she was having terrible pain. She doesn't have the pain anymore.
Incredible.
And it's incredible. And so she's an 87-year-old woman who, they're none of these. I mean, they're of a generation where drugs and marijuana and things like that are not in their purview. It's not good, and they're all converted. It's interesting into that world.
I'm a firm believer that in nature that there's a balance just to life in general. And so whatever disease there is, there has to be a cure somewhere, medicine-wise, in terms of the plants and everything. So I highly encourage people listening to this right now to at least, check out High on the Hog podcast, listen to people's story on healing, and find out what works for you. Test it out for yourself.
And also talk to people who know, because like when you talk, you have to I think that's the most important thing. Finding somebody who's educated that can give you the educated experience and has the knowledge and behind that.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap it up. And
This is fun.
a lot of So Merrill,
Yes.
people can find High on the Hog on
The podcast.
the podcast, High on the Hog podcast on iTunes and other just
Amazon. Just if you
Yeah.
just go to Google and type it in, you'll come
Right.
with a bunch of platforms that carry it.
Awesome. Is it
And,
once a week? Or is
we do it we do at least 2 every 2 weeks, sometimes 3.
Wow.
So it comes out to be once a week.
Great.
Yeah, so it's always fresh, and there is no end of interesting people who want to be on it. And the more you know about it, the deeper you get into this, the more amazing it all becomes. There's coming up in a few days. There's a huge event up in Santa Rosa called the Hall of Flowers. And the Hall of Flowers is thousands of growers and thousands of buyers and thousands of product people all getting together there. And I guess the air is like kind of thick, as it were. No need to light up because just breathe. But otherwise,
They
it's
let
like
you light up.
it's like all about the product on every level. I mean, the THC psychoactive level will certainly be well represented with all the flowers and everything. It's so funny. It's now flowers. We just say buds, man, buds. You got some weed. You got what do you got? You got some seeds and stems. And we don't even say that anymore. I mean, now it's I try to clean up with medical cannabis.
Medical cannabis.
Because inside your body is the endocannabinoid system, which wasn't even known about until the 90s. It was discovered in the 1990s that we have this system that responds to cannabis, and apparently will respond for everything in your body.
But there's like receptors.
Receptors. So little is known about this.
Yeah.
That we have a whole other system going on here, and unfortunately our government is like, nope, that's bad stuff, bad stuff. Oh no, you'll go and you'll vote Democratic. No, don't do this. Don't go for this. No, bad.
who do you co-host with?
I co-host with Janice Hardoon from the K-Town Collective and the Antidote, her CBD store, and with Joanna Belson, who you've either met or chatted with, who's basically a canna mom, and she's worked in the cannabis industry for a while.
And Janice is really the guru. She was actually one of probably she was one of the first stores in Los Angeles, I think, for the dispensary.
She's been in for like 15 years.
And she's also, as I said, she started because she had ailments and she was trying to help herself, and so that she got into the edibles. And from there, she just kept on meeting people and talking to people, and that's how she started her dispensary. And from there, now she's doing she has a skincare line, and so they're moving into so many other areas. It's just her CBD store.
And that's the thing. Everyone I speak to has a backstory, and the backstory is always a matter of illness creates necessity. It's like what I'm getting medically. Prescription is not working, or I'm getting from Big Pharma is not working. What else is out there? Well, there's this stuff. I guess I'll try it. Hey, if you're lucky, it works.
I know. I'm trying to really push it on my parents
works.
in a not so pushy way.
But I think that's important because I think that's exactly. I have a woman who I work with right now who obviously her parents I don't believe in any of it, and so.
Right.
Jocelyn came to my mom's house and listened to Janice talk and is now actually for Mother's Day she's created a little like a basket of different things for her mom to try.
Awesome.
And again there's you start with the CBD, you know what I mean, so that because that has nothing except for it's like a lotion or a cream or an ointment, whatever it is, or a lozenge, or and then you go from there. It's like as we always say, and Janice actually says everything is a baby step, right? You start small and then see what works for you. And
there's something that we push called microdosing. You have to begin with very small doses, and you have to give it a couple of hours at least to happen. And one of the problems people have is they'll take a big dose, and they'll it'll be 15 minutes later and nothing will happen. So they take another big dose, and suddenly they're on the floor asleep.
But that's what THC.
Yeah.
It really, but it's also, and everybody's body responds differently. Everybody's body responds differently. It's like even having, if you go ahead and you have if you choose to drink alcohol, it's like if I have like a quarter of a glass of wine, I'm going to respond like I can't have any more than that because I'm going to fall asleep afterwards. Somebody can have 2 or 3, and it's just so it's your body responds in different ways. ways and reacts at different times.
Absolutely, and I think being
So-
responsible and
Yes.
testing things out and giving it
Have knowledge.
patience. Yeah.
Knowledge. Get the knowledge. Educate yourself. I mean,
Ab-
like everything we do is about educating yourself.
Absolutely, and I think that's one
So-
of the best parts of this. How you describe the podcast High on the Hog is the fact that it's not a stoner podcast. It's about healing, and I think that's so important to realize that there is this aspect to this plant which is the most important, and it's the healing aspect. You know, whenever you like imagine where your life would be if you still had
Bullets pump. Go ahead.
yeah.
Oh, I'd be a complete disaster.
Oh no,
Exactly.
we really thought that he thought he was gonna end up in the hospital at the end of that weekend. And
Jeez.
I came home, and when I saw him, I just said, I was mortified, you
Yeah.
know, and from that point, it was about how was I going to help, and the amount of hours that we took to just get him to a point of getting out of bed.
Yes.
And it was bad. I mean, it was like truly like we didn't know where it was going.
But wait, let
And-
me not suggest that I was cured. I was definitely helped by the CBD THC products, but I was cured by massive doses of prednisone. You know, good old Western medicine. I know I can't play professional baseball now. It's very unfortunate. My dream is over.
Is that a steroid?
It's a steroid.
Yeah, I figured.
It's a steroid, yeah. And several other
Yeah.
like high rent drugs that I went on huge doses of and slowly diminished. And I go in for a blood test every few months to make sure it's under control. And
But it was a combination of drugs for this particular disease that he had,
Mm-hmm.
that he has. I mean, you can still say he has.
Never
because
goes away.
It's basically, it never goes away. It's dormant. Was put to sleep. But it took a year for it to be put to sleep and to get off the drugs. But it was a combination.
Have you guys tried any kind of hyperbaric chamber therapy or any type of meditation or yoga as well to kind of help keep that suppressed? You know, because I know yoga and certain breathing exercises help you with anxiety, help you kind of just mentally stay calm, and that can also stop the stress. Have you guys tried any of that stuff?
Well, we haven't
it's more
tried-
merry than me.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
The chamber. He's
claustrophobic.
so that wouldn't work. But I'm
Gotcha.
also. But I did a lot of yoga. I do Pilates. I do acupuncture a lot. I do breathing. I do meditation. So I think for myself and our daughter, like
Yeah.
we're more into that world. You know, Merrill's like, oh, I can't move my body. You know, so we're trying we
Well,
are trying.
I
everybody
once did
does.
a sensory deprivation tank. It was one of the worst hours of my life.
I didn't like it, dude.
It was like I was confessing to crimes I hadn't committed. I said I did it. Just take me away. Get me out of this thing.
But I think the difference.
How
is,
much
like,
longer is it? I've been in for 3 minutes. Are you kidding?
But for Merril, like I think you relax in different ways. It's like reading a book or listening to his audio tapes. You know, like it's like for me, it's like that's how he winds down. For me, I can't do. I love listening like now to audiobooks. He's gotten me into that, and so but I wind down by literally taking the hour of whether it's acupuncture or whether it's going to yoga or
Yeah.
so I'm that person. You know.
So, two things. The sensory deprivation tank, I wasn't a big fan of. I went with my brother and a couple of his friends, and I was like, oh, I can get to this state meditation-wise. I don't need to be, like, naked in a pool with really salty water, and then, oh, I have a cut on my toe, and now that's all I'm distracted about right now. And by the way, that water is so salty. I don't know, did you feel like if you had any cuts on your fingernails or something like that, did you feel the salt at all?
I was too busy being claustrophobic and
Okay.
panicky that I'm sure I didn't really feel anything.
Oh, yeah. And
Aside from
Probably hit
I'm
the
losing
buzzer
my
to get
mind.
out.
Oh yeah, and they were telling me, oh, don't get the water in your ears because if there's too much salt, then you have to do stuff. And I'm like, the whole time, so I'm like trying to keep my head up and I'm trying to float, and I'm like, oh, this is not comfortable. And they're like, you're in there for an hour, like maybe 30 minutes, and I was like, I'm done. I'm done
It's
so
like
with this.
ringing the bell after the first 30 seconds. That would
Oh,
be us.
I was waiting for my brother and his friends to get out. Mr. Michael, would you mind pulling up Wim Hof, the Joe Rogan episode, the first time he's on there? I just want to show them who this guy is, and I wanted. This is something I'd love for you to check out. This guy, and it's science backed, so it's not just. I don't know what you would call it. It's science backed. This guy Wim Hof. Anecdotal, or what is it called? Not tree hugger. There's another word. I think that was the first time he was on there. Yeah.
Thanks. Not a wolf T-shirt on, nonetheless.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. This is the guy.
Endurance,
Just
you
so
know.
you guys can get a visual on who this guy is. Wim Hof. He was suffering from really bad depression whenever his wife committed suicide years and years ago. And
That'll do it.
it would. And then one day he felt this natural pull towards the cold, like the cold water. He was looking in front of this river and he was like, I just want to jump in. He jumped in and he tells this beautiful story how he felt like needles were all going through his body. And for the first time in a long time, he just felt relief, like just relief from the depression, the sadness of what he went through. And so he kept doing these cold baths, hanging out in the cold, more cold. And he started doing these like breathing exercises, intense breathing exercises, which I've tried and I've gotten lightheaded doing them because you basically flood your body with oxygen. Long story short, he's been able to do these incredible physical feats, climbing to some point on Mount Everest in just his shorts and just boots, shirtless, has climbed multiple mountains in just his shorts, swam under solid ice in the ocean. He missed his mark, like over 100 yards on one breath. It was so cold, his eye, what's it called? The eyes, the front part, the lens, that froze over. That's how cold it was. He's been able to do these incredible feats, and the most amazing thing, he claimed he could control his immune system, which is something that you can't do that. It works involuntarily. But he said, no, I can do it. So they tested him in the hospital. He did his breathing exercises when they injected him with some kind of bacterial infection, and he suppressed it. He didn't get any symptoms. And they're like, okay, you're some kind of anomaly. There's no way that yeah. He's like, no, I can teach this to people. They did the test on like 14 or 16 other people with different genealogical backgrounds. They all were able to do the same thing through his breathing exercises. So they found some kind of correlation with oxygen intake into the body, breathing, and the cold that causes the brain to secrete certain chemicals. It's bonkers. I highly recommend you check him out on the Joe Rogan podcast, and it might get you to do just some breathing exercises as well. It's pretty incredible things backed by science, which I love. But
wow.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show.
A pleasure.
You guys are just awesome. You remind me of my parents, and
is that good or bad?
That's good.
Yeah,
no, I love my parents.
Are awesome. They're amazing.
They say hello.
I follow your mother. Your mother and I follow each other on Facebook and Instagram. Yes.
She gets excited when you like something. She's like, Mary liked my photo. I was like, there you go.
She's adorable.
But I do have to ask you,
yes, sir.
Have you done Japan? What's next?
I'm going back to Kyoto.
Back to Kyoto?
I'm going to spend most of my time in Kyoto, go back to Nara, which I love.
We didn't go to
deer.
Nara. We didn't. Yeah, we missed that. So I know.
I went there my previous trip.
We thought about it, but we did go do Hiroshima, which was amazing, and we actually did the ryokan.
We didn't do the island off Hiroshima. We could have passed on the second night at the ryokan at the country inn. It got a little boring.
I'd like to do something more nature-wise up north. Maybe some of the like smaller towns up north in the mountains. Oh, I want to go to the place. Again, with my buddy who's scared of animals, with the monkeys.
The monkeys.
Yeah, with monkeys in the water. You know how they hang out in the hot springs? I want to go to that place, see if I can chill. Oh, I loved onsens. Did you guys do any bathhouses?
We did a bathhouse for 2 nights. Yeah, it was amazing. So, but we actually went for 2 nights. We probably should have done just one because I think it was like we were in the country, and so there's nothing around it to do except for just literally stay at the bathhouse for the 2 days.
Oh, I love. Was it like a natural bathhouse or?
Yeah.
Oh, those
it was beautiful.
Yeah, so that's next.
That's like I think that's like our Facebook and Instagram, like our photo is like the
it
three of
is.
us in our
It is.
robes.
in our yukatas.
It was fun.
Okay. We would also suggest the Peru trip, which is a pretty great trip.
Oh man, who was I was just talking to somebody about that. I want to go to the ruins there, Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu, yeah. So you fly into Lima. You take a flight 1 hour to Cuzco. You get on the plane at sea level. An hour later, you get off at 12,000 feet. You get to the hotel and they say, "Would you like a cup of tea?" And I go, "I would enjoy a cup of tea." That's unusual. What is it? They go, "Coca." And it's like, and it's like, why do you have leaves sitting on the counter? They're coca leaves. Chew them; they'll give you energy.
No, it actually it balances you from from the elevation. So right, so
It's
like
coca leaves.
Because it is coca leaves, but they actually make you like you want to go to the either oxygen rooms or non-oxygen rooms. So if you have the oxygenated rooms, then you literally like you lie down for 3 hours to just stabilize yourself, and then so it's really
and then
interesting.
it's like a
Machu
very
Picchu
pleasant train trip up to Machu Picchu. The trains are fantastic. They're run by Orient Express. Machu Picchu is mind-boggling. Back down, and then we decided on the train across all of Peru to Lake Titicaca. So I could say Lake Titicaca.
But it's actually talking about doing
14,000 feet.
spiritual things.
Yeah.
Like I saw actually a shaman when I was there. So I did some amazing. We did
People
amazing
live on
things.
floating islands.
Yeah.
They're made out of reeds.
Yeah.
They float. You walk on them, they go bang, 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 bang,
Yeah,
bang, bang, bang.
it's amazing.
That's something I'd like to do, actually. And I'm not big on recreational drug use or hallucinogenics, but I would like to like fast and do like a pious month or something, and then go on some kind of try ayahuasca somewhere in the rainforest just to see what would happen. I've been reading a lot about DMT. You guys know anything about that?
The drug?
DMT, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not much.
Not much, yeah. I'm starting to do research on it. Maybe, probably not, knowing me, but we'll see what happens. Things change. Who knows where I'm at in another 5 years?
Exactly.
If people can find you guys on Twitter and Instagram, or what's the best place?
Merril Schindler,
And I'm Mary Eats
Mary Eats,
at Instagram.
I'm Mr. Eats, and High on the Hog, the podcast. Listen in.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank
pleasure.
you for inviting
Thank you,
us. It's
amigo.
special.
Of course.
Thank
Mr. Michael, let's play it out, and I'll thank everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in to the show. Thank you, Adobe Radio, Nice Guy Digital. Thank you to you, the supporters, the fans. We appreciate you guys tremendously. Thank you to Guayaquil for giving us the high energy drinks, and for this wonderful ceramic mug that my mom wants really bad, and I'm gonna have to buy it for her and send it over because she liked it, so I have to get it for her. She's my mom. Wrong one. Who else are we thanking? Oh, our new subscribers. Thank you so much. New reviewers, and for the people who asked us questions in our intro segment, thank you for asking us questions and for being part of the show. Michael, Peyton, thank you for everything you guys do. Steph, thank you for listening. Always remember to listen, think, and then talk.